I used to think the worst thing was being hated, but it's not. The worst is when your own parents turn you into a tool and then toss you out like garbage. That night, I slept in my beat-up car behind a dollar mart in the freezing rain with 2 trash bags of clothes and a torn backpack. It wasn't the end of my life, but it was the start of something that finally felt like mine. My name is Rachel Dawson. I'm 18. Just graduated high school with a full-ride scholarship to the University of Tennessee, something I had dreamed about for 7 years. But my parents didn't see it as good news. They said I was selfish, that I was abandoning the family, that I owed them my life in service because I was the eldest daughter. My dad, a plumber in the tiny town of Elmsfield, Arkansas, looked me straight in the eye and said, "You don't need college. You need to learn how to serve." My mom didn't say a word, but her silence and the look she gave me said it all, like I had betrayed them. Then they changed the locks, threw my stuff on the porch, and taped a fake restraining order to the front door, accusing me of threatening the family. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just stepped back and knew, deep down, if I stayed, something inside me would die. I slept in that car for 2 nights. No phone, no cash, no one to call. I was terrified, and yet, for the first time, I felt free. No more crying babies at 2 a.m., no more being called Mom by my own siblings. Just me, Rachel, alone with the night and the soft rhythm of rain tapping against the windshield. And then, on one of those nights when I thought I had lost everything, a woman appeared and knocked on my window. Her name was Ms. Carter, a social worker, someone I never imagined would end up changing my entire life. The next morning, I sat in the cramped office of the relief center, staring up at the flickering fluorescent light overhead, and asked myself, how did I end up here? How does a straight-A student, well-behaved, full-ride scholarship to college, end up begging for a place to sleep like she's homeless? But if I'm being honest, it didn't start last night. It started a long time ago, when I was 6 years old. In Elmsfield, Arkansas, the small town where I was born, being the big sister who helps raise the younger kids was just normal. But in my house, it went way beyond that. I wasn't helping my mom. I was raising them. Since the day each sibling was born, I was the one changing diapers, mixing formula, rocking them to sleep, giving baths. I knew how to carry a baby before I was tall enough to reach the kitchen counter. My mom, Joanne Dawson, was a teenage mom, had me at 17. She used to say, "Women like us pop out kids like catching a cold, not a big deal." She had a strange way of minimizing pregnancy, like it wasn't anything serious and never just her responsibility. Every time she got pregnant, she'd laugh and say, "One more for fun. Big sister will handle it." My dad, Roy Dawson, was your typical old-school guy. Quiet, strict, and believed women existed to serve. He worked as a plumber, but most of his paycheck disappeared into beer, cigarettes, and a tool collection no one ever saw him use. He came from a family of 6. My mom came from a family of 12. Both raised in a culture where men make the money, women stay home and breed. I got my first little brother when I was 6, then a baby sister when I was 8. I'll never forget the first time my mom said, You're responsible if they fall or go hungry. I was still in kindergarten, still needed help tying my shoes. Every year after that brought another baby, another burden, another night of broken sleep. I couldn't join school clubs because you have to cook dinner after school. I didn't have friends because friends won't help you raise your siblings. When I turned 13, my mom handed me a thick spiral-bound notebook. On the cover, daily schedule, assigned to Rachel Dawson. Each page was filled in. Wake up at 5:30 a.m., make breakfast, change diapers, walk siblings to preschool, cook dinner, bathe the kids, until 10 p.m. Everyone in the house called me Sister Rachel, but my younger siblings. They called me Mom, and no one corrected them. Every time I said I was tired, my mom would just say, "Someday you'll get married, have kids, and your oldest daughter will help you out. It's tradition." And my dad? He'd say the same line like it was gospel. Family is duty, not a choice. I grew up in a household where love always came with conditions, where girls were taught that sacrifice was just part of our nature, where saying, "I want my own life," felt like blasphemy, and I believed it for over a decade, until the day I opened my acceptance letter from the University of Tennessee. That was the first time I felt like maybe I could live my life. But what I didn't know was that day would also be the beginning of war with my entire family. I still remember that day like it was yesterday. The sun was soft, warm, but inside me, it felt like fireworks exploding. The letter from the University of Tennessee arrived while I was washing dishes. I used a fruit knife to open it, my hands still wet, soap suds clinging to my fingers, but I didn't care. I opened the envelope, read the first line, and something just burst open in my chest. I got in. Full ride. Psychology major, with a housing stipend and dorm accommodation. I wasn't big sister anymore. I wasn't the diaper changer, the porridge maker, the stand-in at parent-teacher conferences. I was Rachel Dawson, a college student, and I cried for the first time in years, not from exhaustion, but from relief. I hugged that letter to my chest and whispered to myself, "You did it. You're getting out." And then my mom walked in. "What's that?" she asked, her voice cold. I didn't even have time to hide it. She snatched the letter from my hands. She read it, went quiet for a moment, then said something that crushed me. "No." I froze. "What?" "You're not going anywhere. Who's gonna take care of the kids? I'm about to give birth. Did you forget?" That's right. She was pregnant again. Baby number 5, this time twins. I was speechless. She kept going. "You've done your part all these years. This is not the time to betray your family." I grabbed the letter back and tried to tuck it into my backpack. Just as my dad walked in, he glanced at the envelope and frowned. "College?" he asked. "Who do you think you are? Go off to school and leave all these kids behind? Your mom's pregnant. Who's gonna help her? Who's changing diapers? Who's cooking dinner?" I didn't say a word. I just clutched the letter tighter, tears running down my face. "And another thing," he added, "that scholarship probably won't cover everything. Who's paying your bills? Who's buying your food, your phone plan? You stay here. You eat and live for free. Out there, let's see how long you last. Or maybe you'll come crawling back with a baby belly and a sorry face. I got the message loud and clear. In their minds, I wasn't a daughter. I was free labor, a live-in nanny, the gatekeeper of a broken household. That night, I hid the letter inside my chemistry textbook and locked it in my drawer. The money I saved from my part-time job at the bakery, I stuffed it into an old box of sanitary pads under the bed. Somewhere I knew my mom wouldn't look, I started planning my escape. Quietly, carefully, I would leave in August. Just take clothes, documents, and hope. 3 months, 3 final months in the prison I once called family. What I didn't know was that everything would blow up. Just 3 weeks later, I thought I could keep it a secret until the day I left. I thought I was being careful. But like every nightmare, it all unraveled because of one stupid accident. That evening, I was doing homework at the kitchen counter when my mom walked in, face cold as stone. In her hands was my chemistry textbook, the one I had hidden the college letter inside. She opened it. There it was, lying wide open on page 132. I stood up, trying to stay calm. "Why did you take my book, Mom?" She didn't answer. Instead, she threw the letter on the table like it was some kind of criminal evidence. "So you've been hiding things, planning to run away from your family?" My fists clenched. My heart was pounding like a war drum. Then my dad walked in from the living room. His eyes were blazing, like I'd committed a murder. "You're not going anywhere," he snapped. "We're calling a family council. Your grandma needs to hear about this." I didn't argue. I knew there was no point, but someone else had been quietly watching. My younger sister, Haley. She was 16. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, she knocked on my door. She didn't say a word, just pulled a phone from her hoodie pocket and showed me something. On her screen were dozens of voice recordings, snippets of conversations I thought were just part of our daily life, now playing back like courtroom evidence. "Rachel has to take care of the kids. It's her blood duty," my mom said in one. "If she goes to college, who's gonna replace the mother in this house?" My dad's voice followed, flat, cold, mechanical. I stared at Haley, stunned. When did you start recording them?" She looked down. "A month ago, when you told me you were applying for scholarships. I didn't know what to do. I was scared. Scared they'd ruin everything again, like they always do." I pulled her into a hug. "You did the right thing. So right." The next morning I went to see Ms. Carter, the social worker at the county office. I didn't know if she could help, but I had to try. She sat silently as I played the first 3 recordings. Then she picked up my phone. "Rachel," she said, her voice tense. "We need to launch an investigation immediately." I nodded. "But do it fast. If they find out my sister recorded those clips, she's not safe." Ms. Carter gave me a firm look. "We'll keep it confidential, but you must guard this phone like your life depends on it. It's a living piece of evidence." For the first time, it felt like I had a real ticket out. But 2 days later, everything spun in a direction I never saw coming. I came home after a shift at the bakery and saw 3 strange cars parked out front. Inside, the house was filled with unfamiliar faces, button-down shirts, lanyards, name tags, child protective services, called by my parents. Their accusation: Rachel is an unfit guardian, neglects the children, displays signs of mental instability. I almost laughed. A broken, breathless laugh caught in my throat. They had taken the exact words I told Ms. Carter and weaponized them against me. I sat on the living room couch, surrounded by people I used to call family. But in that moment, it felt like I was on trial, trapped in a room full of prosecutors just waiting for their turn to accuse me. Grandma Ruth, my mother's mother, sat at the center like an aging queen on her throne. Her white hair in a tight bun, gold-rimmed glasses perched on her nose, and a stare so sharp it made me feel like the only stain on a spotless family tree. She was the matriarch, respected by everyone, gave birth to 12 children, raised an entire generation in poverty, but she was also the one who passed down the twisted rule. The eldest daughter is the replacement mother. "Rachel," she said, her voice deep and steady like a verdict, "I hear you've been causing trouble in this household." I clenched my fists. "I'm not causing trouble, Grandma. I just want to live my own life." The room went dead silent. Then, right on cue, my mother started crying. She's always like this, rebellious, difficult. "You think I haven't tried?" I took her to counseling. The doctor said she had psychological issues. Like it was rehearsed, she pulled a stack of documents from her purse. An official-looking diagnosis, signed by some counselor who happened to be one of her old friends. The paper said I had oppositional defiant disorder, emotional detachment from family, tendency to fabricate stories. "This is legal documentation," my mom announced, waving it in front of our relatives. "If necessary, we're prepared to send her to treatment." I sat there, stunned. Those cold, clinical words were drowning out everything I had actually lived through. No one asked how many diapers I had changed, how many study groups I'd skipped, how many school trips I'd missed just to keep track of Tylenol doses. "We sacrificed for her," my dad added, "and now she stabs us in the back." Grandma Ruth gave a slow, approving nod. "Back in my day, a girl like you would have been smacked until she remembered her place. Your parents feed you, clothe you, and you repay them by whining about wanting your own life. Family isn't something you toss away like an old shirt." A few others nodded. Some aunts, uncles, cousins, silent, but their eyes said it all. Some agreed, some pitied me, but no one dared speak up, except Haley. My sister sat quietly in the corner, clutching her phone, lips tight, hands shaking. I took a long breath. If family means making a 6-year-old play mother, then I respectfully declined to be part of it. No one responded. Then Uncle Frank, my mom's younger brother, a well-known lawyer in town, stood up, adjusted his tie, and walked to the center of the room. "We'll be reorganizing the guardianship in this household," he said. "I'll represent Joanne and Roy legally. We'll file a motion to prevent Rachel from contacting the younger children for their safety." That line cut like a knife. I wasn't just being disowned. They were trying to erase me from the lives of the very siblings I had raised. When the meeting ended, people left one by one. Some gave me pitying glances. Others didn't look at me at all, but I knew This wasn't just a fight between me and my parents anymore. It was me versus the system. A system that hides abuse behind the word tradition. A system that had shaped my entire life. I didn't know how I was going to win. But I knew one thing. I couldn't back down now. The next morning I woke up with a strange feeling. No more anger, no more fear. Just one thing. Emptiness. After last night's family trial, no one in the house spoke to me. My mom locked my bedroom door from the outside. My dad cut the Wi-Fi. It was like I didn't exist. Like I was some stain they were trying to scrub out of their perfect life. I left early, carrying a tote bag with a few outfits, a bit of cash, and the phone with all the recordings. I headed to my shift at the local grocery store, the place I'd worked at for the past 2 years. It felt like the last piece of normal I had left. But as soon as I walked in, the manager called me into the office. "Rachel," he said, avoiding eye contact, "we've had some complaints. A few customers said you were rude, disruptive. Someone even said you might be mentally unstable." I blinked, confused. No one said it directly, but everyone in town knows who your parents are. They've got friends on the zoning board, in church groups. Around here, one rumor can wreck everything. "Are you firing me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Not firing, just a break until things cool down." I stood up, forced a smile, and walked out. As I stepped into the parking lot, it hit me. I had no job, no income, no home, and a family that now treated me like a traitor. I sat down on a bench behind the store and turned on my phone, just in time to see a message from Haley. "They changed the lock on your door." I didn't argue, but I'm still recording. I'm still watching. I texted back a single line. "Thank you. Don't let them suspect anything." Then I called Ms. Carter. I kept it short. "They kicked me out. No home, no job, nowhere to go." She was silent for a few seconds. Then she told me about a shelter, a support center for young women forced out by their families. That night, I slept on the top bunk of a cold metal bed, in a room with 3 strangers. No privacy, no soft light, just the sound of heavy breathing, creaky bed frames, and the chemical smell of industrial-washed blankets. But at least, no one yelled for me to cook. No one shoved guilt in my face. No one made me change diapers at 2 a.m. I passed out, completely drained. The next morning, I got a text from Haley. "You need to leave now. Mom and Dad are filing for a restraining order. Uncle Frank's handling it. I don't know who the court will believe." I stared at the screen. The words blurred from the tears in my eyes. My family didn't just want me gone. They wanted to erase me from my siblings' lives. And if they succeeded, everything I had ever sacrificed would mean absolutely nothing. I sat across from Ms. Carter in her small office at the Women's Support Center. The sunlight from the only window streamed onto her desk, lighting up the neatly clipped files in front of her. She handed me a cup of hot tea and got straight to the point. "Rachel," she said softly, "I believe you. But Haley's recordings alone, they're not enough to take down a system that's been in place for generations." I lowered my head. "I know. But," She flipped open a folder, and her tone shifted. "There's something they didn't see coming." I looked up. "I went through your mother's welfare records. Joanne Dawson. She's been receiving full-time child care subsidies from the state of Arkansas for nearly 8 years, over $32,000 total." My eyes widened. That money was supposed to go to a babysitter? She nodded. According to the paperwork, she was paying a licensed child care provider. But that provider doesn't exist. My hands curled into fists while I was changing diapers, making bottles, taking my siblings to doctor's appointments. They were cashing in, pretending they had hired someone else to do it. "That's welfare fraud, Rachel. A federal crime," she said, steady and unblinking. She slid the evidence across the desk. A printed application with my mom's handwritten signature. Bank statements showing deposits from the subsidy program. Security cam images of my mom signing papers at the county office. It felt like the floor had been pulled out from under me. All those years of living like a ghost in my own home. And not only did they use me to raise their children, they made money off of me. "I've already sent this to the Financial Crimes Division," Ms. Carter said. "They're working with the district attorney's office. If fraud is confirmed, we can bring the case to court." I tried to stay composed, but my heart was pounding. "How long will that take?" I asked. "A few weeks." But I filed for an emergency hold on the restraining order request. "Since there's an active investigation, your parents can't push the court for a decision based on one-sided claims." I nodded, swallowing the emotion rising in my throat. For the first time in months, I didn't feel completely alone. "What about Haley?" I asked quietly. She gave me a reassuring nod. "I've arranged for a private counselor to meet with her at school. She's safe and incredibly brave." I looked out the window. The sky was gray, heavy with clouds, but something inside me had shifted. Not a vague hope like before, but a real shot. A shot to expose the truth. Not just for me, but for every kid in that family who was forced to confuse obedience with love. Who was labeled ungrateful just for daring to dream differently. And I swore, if I ever got the chance to stand before a judge, I wouldn't tremble again. I would tell everything. I was sitting in my evening class, Intro to Statistics, when my phone started vibrating non-stop in the pocket of my coat. I pulled it out quietly, ready to silence it. But the name on the screen made my heart drop. Haley. No message. Just one misdirected call. Then a text popped up. "Rachel, they're gone. I'm at school. I'm safe. Call Miss Carter now." I froze. It felt like the blood in my body started running backward. I stood up in the middle of class, hands shaking, whispered something to the professor, and ran out like the building was on fire. The air outside was cold, but sweat poured down my back. I called Miss Carter immediately. She picked up after just one ring. "Rachel? You know, don't you?" she said. No hello, no hesitation. "Haley texted me. Did they run?" "We just confirmed it," she said quickly. "This morning, Joanne and Roy failed to show up for their welfare hearing. When we called the school, turns out all 4 younger kids were pulled from class yesterday." My mind went blank. They actually took them and fled? They told the kids it was a family vacation. According to Haley, the last one to speak to the youngest, they're heading toward Texas. Of course, Texas, where the paternal side of the family owns a remote ranch, far from city limits. No neighbors, no oversight, a little world where family tradition is the only law that matters. State police have been alerted, Ms. Carter said, her voice tight. We just activated an Amber Alert. Parental abduction. Checkpoints are going up at every gas station, toll booth, and state line. I collapsed onto a bench in the hallway, vision blurred. What can I do? Nothing, she said firmly. Do not interfere. Do not get close. We're coordinating with the FBI to keep the kids safe. What about Haley? She's at her high school, safe. One of our staff is already with her. I lowered the phone into my lap, staring into nothing. All I could see were the faces of my younger siblings. The one who used to call me Mom. The one who told me I was the only one who understood them. I used to think they saw me as a shadow, a servant, but now, the fact that my parents had to take them just to maintain control, that was proof. They feared me. They feared the truth. They feared I was finally free. I sat there for hours, eyes fixed on the phone. My roommates took turns sitting beside me in silence, holding my hand. Then, at exactly 11:42 p.m., my phone rang. It was Miss Carter. We found them, she said, exhaling like she'd been holding her breath for hours. Gas station outside of Texarkana. State troopers pulled them over. License plate matched our alert. The kids are safe. I broke down. I cried, harder than I had in months. Your parents will be arrested on the spot. Charges include violating a court investigation, obstruction of justice, and suspected family abduction. But I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel like I'd won. I just felt tired. But somewhere deep inside in that exhaustion, I knew the shift had happened. The sides had changed. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just someone else's pawn on the board. I was the one holding the pieces. The next morning, when I walked into Ms. Carter's office, her eyes were dark, like she hadn't slept all night, but her voice, calm and steady, was exactly the same. "Rachel," she said gently, "would you take a seat?" I sat down, still reeling from the phone call the night before. "The kids have been placed in an emergency care shelter in the next city," she said. "They're safe, under psychological observation. Haley is temporarily staying with a caseworker. She wants to talk to you." I nodded. "Is she okay?" "Better than expected," Ms. Carter smiled. "And she told us something important." I frowned. Ms. Carter opened a slim file and looked straight at me. "Rachel, we want to ask, would you consider taking temporary legal guardianship of your siblings?" The words hit like a boulder. I froze. I stared at Ms. Carter, unsure if I should laugh or cry. "You mean me? Guardianship?" "No one else in the family qualifies," she explained. "Your parents are in custody, facing felony charges. Your grandparents were found unfit, and Haley's not of legal age. But what?" I asked, voice cracking. "You're the only one with a clean record. You've cared for them before. And most importantly, you want what's best for them. I leaned back, feeling like the world had looped back to the start. I had fought. I had broken free. I had reclaimed my life. And now, they were asking me to become a mother again. "I don't know," I whispered. "I can barely take care of myself." Ms. Carter nodded. "I understand. And I'm not asking for an answer today, but let me say this. Foster care, no matter how well-intentioned, is not a home. And to those kids, you're still the only one who hasn't turned your back on them." I didn't respond. My throat was dry, like swallowing stones. That night, I called Haley. She picked up on the first ring. Her voice was soft, tired, but steady. They couldn't even look me in the eye when they were handcuffed. I didn't know what to say, except they asked if I'd take guardianship. Silence on the line. Then Haley spoke slow and clear. "I know. Ms. Carter told me. What are you thinking?" I swallowed hard. "I'm not sure. I'm tired. I'm scared. I don't want to go back to being that version of me again." "I get it," Haley whispered. "But this time, you won't be alone." I said nothing. "We can do it differently this time," she continued. "No more carrying the weight by yourself. No more trading your dreams for duty. I'll get a job. We can apply for assistance. Therapy for the kids. We can build our own kind of family. One where you're not trapped." I closed my eyes. For the first time, I saw a different kind of home. A small space with laughter, homework on the table, simple dinners, and no shouting, no guilt, no strings attached. A dream I had never allowed myself to imagine. "I'll think about it," I said softly. "But Haley, thank you for not leaving me. You didn't leave me first. Now it's my turn." I hung up and sat in the dark, in a tiny apartment barely big enough for a bunk bed and a desk. And I started writing a list. Not a list of sacrifices, but a list of terms. If I said yes, I'd need help, financial support, therapy, freedom. I needed to be a sister, not a replacement for a broken mother. And this time, if I rebuilt a family, it would be on my terms. I signed the papers on a Monday morning. The sky wasn't sunny or rainy, just gray and strangely quiet. At the top of the form, in bold print, were the words, "Temporary Guardianship Approval." It confirmed that I, Rachel Dawson, was now the legal temporary guardian of my 4 younger siblings. The judge said, "This isn't an obligation. It's a choice, recognized by law." And I nodded, not because I was ready, but because, for the first time in my life, I wanted it. Haley and I were assigned a small 4-bedroom apartment through the Emergency Family Housing Program. It wasn't a castle, but it had sunlight pouring through the windows, our own washer and dryer, and a tiny yard where we planted herbs. Most importantly, it was ours. That first weekend, we spent 2 full days painting the kids' bedrooms. The little ones were coming home Tuesday. Light blue for the twins, Liam and Ellie, lavender for Noah, the 8-year-old bookworm with a fragile heart, soft yellow for Gabriel, the youngest, just 3 years old, who still called me Mama. I used to hate that word, but now I didn't. Because this time it wasn't forced. It was safe. When they arrived, carrying garbage bags filled with old clothes, I nearly fell apart. They looked at me like I was a stranger. No hugs, no crying, no smiles. I knelt down, eye level with them, and said, "Hey guys, from now on, this is our home. Haley and I will take care of you. No one will yell in your face. No one will force you to be quiet. Here, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be happy. And it's okay to just be kids." Noah was the first to speak. "Do we still get to go to school?" I smiled. "Not only that, you're getting new books, new pencil cases, and if you behave, pancakes every Saturday morning." Liam tugged at my shirt and whispered, "Mom said you kidnapped us." I looked him straight in the eye. "Mom misunderstood. I'm not here to replace her. I'm here to be your sister, the way a sister should be." That night, we ate dinner around a worn wooden table. Haley talked about school. I made tea. The kids sat and colored. No phones, no shouting, just soft laughter. Awkward at first, like the house wasn't used to the sound of joy. Before bed, Gabriel waddled over with a pillow in his arms and looked up at me. "Rachel, today, are you my sister or my mom?" I paused, then knelt down beside him. "Today," I said, "I'm the one who's going to love you the right way." He nodded, hugged my leg tight, then ran back to his coloring. I turned to look at Haley. She was sticking flower decals on the wall. She glanced at me and smiled. In that look, after everything, she told me something without saying a word. "We've started over, and this time, no one gets left behind." The courtroom wasn't cold, but I still felt a faint shiver run down my spine as I stepped inside. Sentencing day. 6 months after my parents' failed escape, they now sat before the judge in orange jumpsuits, wrists lightly cuffed, eyes hollow. The same people who once screamed that I was a traitor, now silent, like they already knew. There was no way out. Haley and I sat in the last row, holding hands tightly. The kids weren't with us. We decided they didn't need to see their parents like this, not as a final memory. The prosecutor stood first. She read out the charges like a scroll of history, each line a nail in the coffin of our past. Abuse of federal welfare programs totaling over $32,000. Tax fraud, claiming Rachel Dawson as a dependent while forcing her to work to support her siblings. Obstruction of justice. Severe psychological harm through prolonged parentification of minors. Each charge hit like a gavel pounding into my chest. Their court-appointed attorney, assigned after Uncle Frank declined to represent them, tried to invoke cultural background, traditional values, financial hardship, but his voice was weak, meaningless. The judge, a silver-haired woman with a deep, steady voice, looked directly at my parents like she was staring through their carefully built walls. "Mr. and Mrs. Martinez," she began. And for a second, I didn't recognize the names, not Mom and Dad, just 2 defendants. "You had a daughter who was bright, capable, and full of potential, and instead of nurturing her, you exploited her, controlled her, punished her for wanting independence. Love," she said, "is never systematic exploitation." My mother lowered her head. My father gripped the edges of his chair. Neither of them spoke. The judge raised her gavel. This court sentences each defendant to 24 months in prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation and full repayment of all fraudulent funds. Reinstatement of parental rights will only be considered after completing a court-mandated parenting program with independent evaluation from a licensed therapist. No one clapped, no one cheered, but inside me was a long, aching exhale. 10 years in the making. As we walked out of the courtroom, Ms. Carter was waiting by the door, holding a familiar folder. She smiled softly. "Next month," she said, "we go to court again to finalize permanent guardianship for you and Haley." I nodded. My eyes burned, not from grief, but from the kind of release I never thought I'd feel. Outside the courthouse, autumn sunlight filtered through the trees. A gentle breeze caught a loose strand of Haley's hair. She turned to me and whispered, "So, this is real now, right?" I smiled, said nothing. We had survived. We had won. And for the first time, I truly believed our new life had finally begun. 3 months after the final sentencing, I received an envelope from the Elmsfield Community Fund's scholarship office. Inside, there was just one line. "Congratulations, Rachel Dawson. You are this year's recipient of the Break the Cycle Scholarship." I cried right there in the post office. Not because of the money, though it would cover almost all of my community college tuition, but because, for the first time ever, I was recognized for choosing a different path. These days, my mornings start at 6:15 a.m., with the sound of an old alarm clock, the smell of slightly burnt toast, and the giggles of the twins fighting over who gets the toothpaste first. Haley handles getting them dressed. I pack lunches and make breakfast. Gabriel, the youngest, still refuses to sit still for more than 10 minutes. But at least now, he calls me by my real name. Noah, the oldest, does his homework on his own now. He was just selected for the school's poetry reading team. Our tiny apartment is never quiet, but it's full of life. We're not perfect. Some mornings I'm late to class. Some nights Haley snaps at the kids from pure exhaustion. Sometimes we pay for milk using coupons, but those are the messes of a real family, not burdens disguised as tradition. I used to think freedom meant no one could control you anymore, but now I know. Real freedom is when you no longer need permission to be yourself. I'm still in college, still working weekends, still learning how to be a mother, a sister, an adult. But this time, it's by choice, not obligation. And there's one thing I'll teach my siblings. One thing I wish someone had taught me years ago. Family is not a place you suffer to keep the peace. A real family is a place where you're allowed to grow, where you're allowed to shine, without fear of being dimmed. If you've ever been forced into roles you never chose, if you've ever been told that sacrifice is the price of love, if you've ever been made to feel that living for yourself is selfish, I just want you to know, you're not wrong, you're not ungrateful, you're just trying to live honestly. And that is never a sin. My name is Rachel Dawson, and I broke the cycle that my family had bowed to for 3 generations, with choice, with truth, and with love. Rebuilt from the ground up.